Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, I'm Nurfid Effendi. Tonight in Primetime Asia, Fijians have been left stunned and confused after Super Cyclone Winston kills at least 10 and raises fears of a national health crisis. Aerial photographs of Fiji taken by New Zealand's armed forces show the scale of destruction caused by Cyclone Winston. Particular emphasis will be placed on reconnecting Fiji's national grid, the Prime Minister said. Australian Immigration Minister Peter Dutton says a baby girl in a Brisbane hospital facing repatriation to an offshore immigration detention camp will go to an onshore facility instead. A week-long protest over unemployment by a Hindu rural caste in the northern state of Haryana near Delhi has intensified, bringing the death toll to at least 10 and more than 100 injured. India pledges $250 million to help rebuild quake-hit Nepal as prime ministers of the two countries hold talks in New Delhi. Members of the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights group of independent experts say that significant obstacles remain in finding out what happened to 43 students who went missing in Mexico in September 2014. The driver of a rental truck is rescued after his truck went over a bridge due to a collision with two other vehicles. Kartini Knox has the details.
Fiji began a massive cleanup on Monday, February 22nd, after one of the most powerful storms recorded in the southern hemisphere tore through the Pacific island nation, flattening remote villages, cutting off communications and killing at least 10 people. Some media reports said on Monday the number of dead may have reached at least 17. Aid agencies warned of a widespread health crisis, particularly in low-lying areas of the country, where thousands of the country's 900,000 people live in tin shacks after crops were wiped out and freshwater supplies blocked. Many people remained hunkered down in hundreds of evacuation centres across the country, where they headed before Tropical Cyclone Winston hit late on Saturday, packing winds of up to 325 kilometres per hour, or 200 miles per hour. Homes have been destroyed, many low-lying areas have flooded, and many people have been left stunned and confused about what to do, said Prime Minister Josiah Vorik Bainimarama, commonly known as Frank, after declaring a 30-day state of emergency. A curfew in place for more than 36 hours was lifted early on Monday, allowing the Fijian military to ramp up efforts to reach the more remote parts of the archipelago of about 300 islands. The 10 confirmed fatalities were all along the western coast and were caused mainly by flying debris and drowning and storm surges, the Fiji Broadcasting Corporation said, citing authorities. There were also fears for 7 fishermen believed to be missing at sea. The Australian and New Zealand governments authorised the release of emergency aid supplies held in the Fijian capital of Suva, which escaped the brunt of the Category 5 storm, to ensure communities have access to safe drinking water and basic hygiene. The high level of preparation by the Fijian government had helped keep the death toll low. Virgin Australia said it would resume flights on Monday, while Jetstar said it was still assessing the situation.
Homes have been destroyed. Many low-lying areas have flooded.
Australia said on February 21st a baby girl facing repatriation to an offshore immigration detention camp would go to an onshore facility instead, easing tensions that peaked in a blockade outside a hospital where she is a patient. Doctors at a children's hospital in Brisbane had refused to release the 1-year-old girl after completion of her treatment for serious burns, adding to pressure on the government over its tough asylum seeker policy. The number of asylum seekers trying to reach Australia is small in comparison with those arriving in Europe, but border security is a hot-button political issue in Australia, which is scheduled to hold a national election later in the year. Federal Immigration Minister Peter Dutton said the infant, known only as baby Asha, would shortly be released into community detention, which allows free movement in Brisbane. However, Dutton stressed that the family could still be returned to a camp on this tiny South Pacific island of Nauru, about 3,000 kilometres northeast of Australia, if they were not deemed to be genuine refugees. Asha was flown last month from the Nauru Centre, which houses more than 500 people, to Brisbane for hospital treatment. The facility has been widely criticised for harsh conditions and reports of systemic child abuse. The High Court this month rejected a legal test case that challenged Australia's right to deport 267 refugee children and their families who had been brought to Australia from Nauru for medical treatment. Hundreds of Australians held an overnight vigil at the hospital, blocking exits and stopping cars in a bid to halt Asha's removal, and drew wide attention and support in Australia, with the Twitter hashtag #BabyAsha trending worldwide. The protest continued on Sunday. Australia maintains a policy of sending asylum seekers who attempt to reach the country by boat to camps on Nauru or on Manus Island in Papua New Guinea. They are not offered resettlement in Australia. The government says the policies are necessary to stop the drowning of asylum seekers as people smugglers use unseaworthy vessels to ship them from Indonesia to Australia.
We're all here. This baby has been...
A week-long protest.
A week-long protest over unemployment by a Hindu rural caste in the northern state of Haryana near Delhi has intensified, bringing the death toll to at least 10 and more than 100 injured. Some 9,000 troops and paramilitaries have been deployed in the state in a massive show of force to quell the violence. The protesters demand government jobs and spaces in schools and colleges as competition for those becomes more fierce in India. They've hit water supplies to Delhi, a metropolis of 20 million people, damaged and burned buildings. In the city of Rewari, protesters were squatting on railway tracks, forcing the cancellation of some 600 trains. At least 7 train stations were set on fire. Area schools are ordered to stay closed on Monday as protesters vow not to move until their demands are met. The violence threatens to undermine Prime Minister Narendra Modi's campaign, platform of jobs and growth, and his promises of better days to come. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on February 20th held talks with his Nepalese counterpart Kedar Prasad Sharma Oli and pledged $250 million to help rebuild quake-hit Nepal. Nearly 9,000 people were killed in a 2015 earthquake and aftershocks in Nepal. Nearly and almost 1 million houses and buildings were damaged. The assistance is part of 9 agreements signed by the 2 nations. For the post-earthquake reconstruction of Nepal, India had announced a $1 billion assistance package. In the 2 agreements signed, one of $250 million grants and second of a $750 million line of credit, will take forward India's partnership, said Modi at a joint press conference with Oli. Modi also hailed promulgation, the adoption of Nepal's constitution, terming it an important achievement, but its success depends on consensus and dialogue, he added. In his first overseas trip after assuming charge in October last year, Oli said the purpose of his visit was to repair ties with India, damaged by a row over the Himalayan Republic's first democratic constitution. Ties with India soured following protests in Nepal's Tarai Madhs lowlands after the region's ethnic Madhesi community said the charter adopted in September aimed to weaken its role in the power structure. The 2 nations signed 9 agreements following delegation-level talks. These include improving road infrastructure in Nepal's Terai area, cultural cooperation, transit between Nepal and Bangladesh through the Kakarbita-Banglaband corridor.
पूरा विश्व इस बात को मानता है कि पिछले कुछ सालों में
A committee of independent experts organized by the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights, IACHR, said on Sunday, February 21st, that significant obstacles still remain as the investigation into the 2004 disappearances of 43 student teachers continues. The comments by the Interdisciplinary Group of Independent Experts, IGIE, come some 5 months after the same group issued a scathing report charging that the Mexican government's investigation was deeply flawed. After the expert's September report, Mexico's Attorney General Arely Gomez said she would soon reopen a new investigation to determine what happened to the students. IGIE member Carlos Beristain said on Sunday that while some advances have been made, major obstacles remained. The students, ranging in age from 18 to 23, went missing on September 26, 2014, in the violent southern state of Guerrero. The students had attended the Ayotzinapa teachers course. Mexican authorities have said they believe the students' bodies were burned in a rubbish dump in the small town of Cocula after being abducted by police and delivered to hitmen. Last year, the IACHR's committee of experts launched an independent investigation. The experts determined that although the government says the students are dead, there was no evidence pointing to whether the young men were dead or alive, and asserted that the incineration in the garbage dump never happened. Beristain added that the group continued to face resistance from the government. According to an agreement between Mexico and the IACHR, the group's second term of investigation is set to end on April 30th. However, the period could be extended if both sides agree. Emergency crews worked for hours to save a trapped driver after his truck went over a bridge in California Sunday, February 21st, after a collision with two other vehicles. Local media reported. The driver of the rental truck was transported to a local hospital but was conscious when he was rescued, NBC News said. Two other people involved in the accident sustained minor injuries.
Welcome back. North Korea's state media have released still photographs of leader Kim Jong-un inspecting military drills after the state's controversial rocket launch. A dearth of cargo as China's economy grows as its slowest pace in 25 years means business for bulk ships, which cost about $4,000 a day to operate, has ground to a halt with at least 10 dry bulk carriers lying idle off the coast of Hong Kong on one of the world's busiest shipping routes. A newborn baby girl in Argentina surprises mother with massive 14-pound weight, 6.13 kilograms. People in Taipei visit a 3-story upside-down house, which took more than $600,000 and 2 months to complete. Katin Knox again with the details.
North Korea's state media on Sunday, February 21st, released still photographs of leader Kim Jong-un inspecting military drills after the state's controversial rocket launch. The still photographs, broadcast on the North state-run television KRT, showed artillery shells being fired and Kim looking at military firing drills through binoculars. The maneuvers for attack and defense between large combined units of the Korean People's Army KPA were staged in 3 directions at the same time, KRT said. KRT also showed still photographs of Kim watching flight drills of fighter pilots of the KPA's air and anti-air force. However, KRT did not specify the dates or locations of the drills. During the drills, Kim was accompanied by Army General Park Yong-sik, Minister of the People's Armed Forces, and Army General Ri Myong-soo, Chief of the KPA General Staff, and other high-profile military officers, KRT said. This is the first time Ri Myong-soo was introduced as a chief of the KPA General Staff by North Korean media. Ri had been rumoured that he replaced Ri Yong-gil, who was executed in February for corruption and factional conspiracy, South Korea's Yonhap news agency reported. North Korea fired several artillery rounds into the sea near a disputed maritime border with South Korea on Saturday, February 20th, causing alarm among residents on a nearby island in the south. But the shells did not fly across the border, according to the South's military. The two Koreas are in a tense political standoff after the North's nuclear test on January 6th and a long-range rocket launch on February 7th. South Korea and the United States say there were grave violations of UN Security Council resolutions. The allies are expected to begin large-scale annual military drills in early March, which the North calls preparations for war and routinely vows retaliation over.
훈련을 볼 때마다 늘 강조하는 것이지만 저국의 영공 방위는 경례하는 김정은 동측에서는 전투 비행은 훈련이 성과적으로 진행된 데 대하여 거듭 만족해하시면서.
On the southern tip of Hong Kong, off the coast of a nearly deserted island, at least 10 massive dry bulk carrier ships lie idle on one of the world's busiest sea routes. The scene paints a grim picture for an industry that is grappling with what some veterans describe as an unprecedented crisis and underscores the challenges facing policymakers who are struggling to weather global economic doldrums. Tim Huxley, CEO of Hong Kong-based Wah Kwong Maritime Transport Holdings, said it was the worst he had seen the industry in his 32-year career. While the fortunes of parts of the global shipping industry have ebbed and flowed, the dry bulk shipping industry has suffered from large capital inflows from private equity players, betting on sustained demand from emerging markets, in particular China. While oil tankers have benefited from low crude prices, which have prompted stockpiling of reserves, the dry bulk shipping industry has suffered from overcapacity and slowing demand as China's economy grows at its slowest pace in 25 years. Shipping firms have endured years of losses since the global financial crisis brought the shipping boom to an end, as new vessels ordered before the downturn created an oversupply and depressed freight rates to record lows. Operating costs for dry bulk ships are around $5,500 to $7,500 per day, depending on the size of the vessel, and the global commodities meltdown has made it hard for many operators to cover costs. And there's no sign of a pickup anytime soon. While demand for bulk shippers has slumped, supply has scarcely blinked. At an event in Shanghai on Thursday, February 18th, Zhu Lirong, the chairman of the newly formed company of China COSCO Shipping Corporation, created from the state-driven merger of former rivals China Ocean Shipping Group Company and China Shipping Group, acknowledged this is the most difficult period the company is experiencing since the financial crisis. For the China COSCO Shipping Corporation, it's banking on the tie-up to weather some of the leanest times for shipping firms already mired in the longest downturn in 3 decades. An Argentine newborn startled her family when she came into the world with a massive 14 pounds or 6.13 kilograms last week. Olivia was born via caesarean section to Maria Fernando Basli in central Argentina on February the 16th. Her size took her mother by surprise. She told a local television station that her first baby was also big, a boy who weighed 4 kilos at birth, but not like Olivia. Basli said the newborn size is posing some problems when it comes to clothing her. Doctors at the clinic where Olivia was born said her size has set a local record. They added that she remains under supervision but is healthy. A 3-story high house that is entirely upside down attracted hundreds of people wanting to catch a glimpse of the rather odd sight on Saturday, February 20th in downtown Taipei. The house, painted with vivid colors on the exterior walls, was furnished in the American country style, with real-sized chairs, tables, a toilet bowl and even a car stuck to the ceiling. The construction progress was delayed because of constant rain in January, but workers were working in full swing to meet the deadline. In the end, the house opened its doors to the public 1 week later than scheduled on February the 6th and will display until July 22nd of this year. One visitor said he was excited to visit the house because the upside-down perspective made him feel like he was in a movie. The family-sized house, including a living room, a bathroom, a garage and other rooms, has about 334 square meters of floor space, organizers said, adding that the whole process of construction took around 2 months after spending around $600,000 US.
That's it for this week's Primetime Asia. We'll be back at the same time next week with more news and features from the Asia-Pacific region. For more news, you can visit our website at www.rtbnews.rtb.gov.bn. I'm Nurfida Fendi, wishing you a good week ahead and good night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.